honor and my greatest pleasure to introduce to you the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
In the Australian office, they're monitoring events 10 floors below. The President fails to win the support of his audience. One delegate dismisses the presidential address as smoke and mirrors, with a generous helping of rhetoric.
Even when we don't agree with them, we might learn something to prove that the quality of life of ordinary citizens in every country can be lifted and advanced on the environmental front.
Do you practice safe trade? Hey, I know you practice safe trade.
Up in the convention center, Remy Parmentier is handing out safe trade condoms.
Summary of the Greenpeace report on safe trade in the 21st century. For over a year, the US and Canadian governments have been using the World Trade Organization to prevent the United Nations Environment Program from adopting a protocol on biosafety that would recognize the right of any country to say no to genetically modified organisms in food and agriculture. That's a Greenpeace report on safe trade in the 21st century.
Parmentier believes that the idea of selling safe trade to Americans is as tough as selling safe sex to the Vatican, and in that he loses his nerve.
This is a report on the safe trade in the 21st century. I'm not giving you the executive summary, but the full report is very interesting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We're Greenpeace.
Many environmental groups want UNEP to call the shots on big trade issues affecting the environment, be it logging or fishing or trading genetically modified products. And they want protocols brokered by UNEP to take precedence over WTO rulings.
I've been hearing around here sentiments along these lines from a number of NGOs in particular, and emphasizing the important role UNEP can play in this area to ensure that environment is integrated in trade.
As the trade talks stall and the WTO's world begins to fragment, triumphant protesters storm the Citadel. This is the press center. The world's cameras are here, and these demonstrators are within easy earshot of delegates.
You have people power! Bill Clinton's political power cannot stop people power! Bill Gates' financial power cannot stop people power! We will save the world's forests for future generations! Yeah!
It's a shame to say that we told them so, but we did.
You tell them, Randy!
There are 1,450 NGOs from 90 different countries that said the priority has to be review, repair, reform. And now what they've done is they've slipped into the trap of trying to get all of their commercially self-interested goodies on the table. And that's what's bouncing developing countries into it. Now, at the last minute, they must not strike a bad deal.
If there was real democracy, we wouldn't have to protest, because we would have been involved from the beginning. But that's not the case.
Back up, please!
The real give and take goes on in back rooms and behind closed doors. Is that democracy? I don't think so.
Go. Let go. No! Get your hand behind your back. Hey! What's going on here? Okay, we got him. Canadian press. I'm with the Canadian press. You don't push the police, partner. The police.
It all happens within full view of delegates, and as the temperature continues to rise, we go in search of Ambassador Rana. We want to know the result of the African ministers' meeting. Could it be that for the first time, Africa is speaking with one voice?
Well, after you left me and we went into the Africa group meeting, the most important issue on the agenda there was the issue of lack of transparency. As a result, the African ministers of trade decided to come up with a very strong statement by saying they will not be able to join any consensus to meet the objectives of this meeting unless their concerns are taken on board.
As the talks lurch towards collapse, the Australian minister is taking stock at a news conference.
When you get into a negotiating situation about the very complex issues that we are negotiating and the hundreds of millions of people that are affected and stand to benefit from a better arranged set of trading rules across the world, it gets into a very emotive circumstance, and and with the number of people involved, of course it's going to be unruly from time to time.
But with developing countries refusing to be bullied, talks are now crashing deadlines.
This is what we call unregulated investment.
In the delegates' foyer, no one seems too sure what's happening.
I think it will be another 2, 3, 4 hours.
Those who've been burning the candle at both ends for days are exhausted. It's getting late. The Australian Trade Minister is still locked in a meeting. But we tracked down Bruce, his assistant.
I can't tell you when they'll end. It could, I'd suggest they'd go well into the night and perhaps even 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, maybe later. I don't know.
I mean, was the Minister prepared for this when he came here?
Oh yes, don't worry. He was expecting it to be sleepless in Seattle.
Sometime towards midnight, the WTO waves the white flag of surrender.
This is Como 4 News. Good morning to you. I'm Gary Lindsay. This hour, protesters say they won. The WTO meetings in Seattle end in failure.
The Battle of Seattle was a tactical, strategic and public relations disaster for the WTO.
Asked if he was considering resigning because of this failure, Moore said no.
The WTO is still licking its wounds.